The Sports Source is brought to you by Fast Frame, with exciting Vol sports prints now available.
This is The Sports Source, presented by Bill Hotz and Associates, and by Renewal by Andersen, with your host, John Pennington.
Good Sunday morning. Welcome into The Sports Source, presented today by Renewal by Andersen. Well, the revenge tour is complete. It's a good thing Philip Fulmer is your athletic director and doesn't have another team, because Derek Dooley now joins Butch Jones and former coaches that have come in here and beaten Tennessee this year. 50-17. Speaking of Butch Jones, Tennessee lost by the exact same score yesterday, as you know by now, 50-17, as they lost last year in Butch Jones' final game as Tennessee's head coach. Vol Network said, I haven't read this anywhere, so I'll trust the Vol Network, that was the first time in history that a team has put 50 in back-to-back games against Tennessee. Missouri becomes the team to do that. We will talk about the debacle yesterday. We'll talk about whether or not this team can get up off the mat again and get ready for Vanderbilt and possibly make it to 6-6. Let's start that talk right now. First segment of our show, brought to you by Renewal by Andersen. It's November. Everybody's talking Black Friday sales. You don't have to wait until this Friday. You can call right now. Buy one window from Renewal by Andersen. These are the best windows in the world, best reputation in the world. Save yourself money in terms of your heating and air. It's fantastic. You get 30% off if you call this week and get one of their windows. Plus, 24 months with no money down, no interest. Installation is included in that. Save money all winter. Save money next summer. Visit rbaknoxville.com. Schedule before November 30th. You're going to make the savings. Renewal by Andersen. All right. Want to welcome in the first round of panelists right here. Bob Hodge, VFL Will Overstreet. Jimmy Himes and Josh Ward from the Sports Animal down there. 3 weeks ago, Tennessee played a good half and a bad half versus South Carolina. 2 weeks ago, they just played badly against Charlotte. A week ago, they played great against Kentucky. Yesterday, they were terrible again. My question is pretty simple. Is this just an inconsistent football team? Or is this a bad team that had 2 good days against Auburn and Kentucky?
Ooh. Well, I guess I'll go first.
Everybody's just staring.
I think it's the team that it looked like before the season. It wasn't going to be a very good football team. And I think the wins have came. If you would have flip-flopped beating Kentucky with losing to South Carolina, if you'd have flip-flopped beating at Florida at home with beating Auburn on the road, then I think you've got the team that you kind of expected that you were going to have. So I don't think it's a real good football team. To me, the surprises are the 2 big wins that you've got on your schedule and who they came against. Not that you won those 2 games. It's just I thought, okay, you can beat Florida at home, you can beat South Carolina on the road. To beat Auburn on the road and Kentucky at home, to me, that's the surprise.
Okay, so inconsistent team, or as Bob danced around but really meant, bad team with 2 good days.
Bad team with two good days. I don't think there's any doubt about that, especially you're bad in the positions we've talked about, which are your front 7 on your offensive line and on your defensive line.
Yeah, hold on that, because that's part 2 of the
Right, but
segment.
just saying, bad team, that's what this group is. This is not a great unit. They just, whatever came off, they came off a Kentucky team that had lost to Georgia and lost a chance to the SEC. That gave them a lot of momentum going into that. So overall, don't think this is inconsistent. I think it's just a bad team.
They've still got a game to go. If they beat Vanderbilt, they're bowl eligible at 6-6. Would that change your thinking, or do you guys already think, well, it's just inconsistent? Or do you guys think, no, it's bad, 2 good days?
I don't think they're a very good team. They're an inconsistent bad team. How's that?
That's both. Okay. Very Cavaliers.
Well, I've been around Chuck a long time. I just, when I look, they haven't played enough good games for me to sit there and think that this is a good team. And even with the win over Charlotte, they didn't play very well. They've had other moments where they look better, like ETSU, a team that they should dominate, and they did. But I don't think this is a very good team. They lack speed, they lack strength, they lack, in some cases, athletic ability. I don't. That to me means you're.
But other than that, you've been pretty good.
Mrs. Lincoln was the play any good.
Well, there's consistency right across the board. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think Tennessee's a bad football team that has the ability to play above its head at times, and that's happened. But Tennessee's lost 5 games this season by 26 or more points. Mm-hmm. I mean, you're not a good team if that happens. It was a good performance against Auburn. Nobody would argue it was a good performance, really good performance against Kentucky. Nobody would argue that. But there's a reason Tennessee's 5-6, and maybe going to be an underdog at Vanderbilt.
Well, you go back and you look at the Charlotte game, which was not a good game. The Texas-El Paso game was not a real good game. I mean, they struggled in that game too. So even in the 2 of your wins, you did not look like a Power 5 team that the arrow was going up on.
Yeah, you look like you were more on a level with Charlotte and UTEP than you would an SEC team. We asked last week if this team could put together 2 back-to-back good games, and obviously you're going to go the whole season. Unless they beat Vanderbilt and then go have a good bowl game, they've gone the whole year without doing it. But it starts in the trenches, as you kind of alluded to. Missouri became the 5th SEC opponent this year to rush for 200-plus yards on Tennessee. So Bob and I were talking yesterday. I've said all year, well, the defensive line has made strides. That's where they've made strides there. They've looked better. I wonder now, am I just saying that because they look better compared to everything else on the team? Because how much better are they? How good are they when they're giving up 200 yards rushing in 5 games? You're 0-5 in those games, by the way. And the Vols on the other side, you ran for 82 yards. Half of those came in the last minute and a half of the game. And that raised your yards per carry average to 2.8, 2.9. Before that, you were down around low 2s, high 1s again. This thing begins and ends in the trenches. You hinted at it. Go ahead, dive into it.
Yeah, I mean, it really does. I mean, in the SEC, you have to have good front sevens. And yesterday against Missouri, just on the defensive side of the ball, talking about them, when the ball was snapped, the line of scrimmage was 1 yard from where it used to be. There was no doubt that no one was getting penetration on Tennessee's side, and Missouri's offensive line, on linebackers, on defensive line, on whoever they ran into, they were pushing them back. You even heard one of the cameras picked up at one point one of the Missouri players yelling at a linebacker he just blocked, "You're soft." I mean, and he was yelling out, and after he took him and manhandled him and pushed him out there. They were a much more physical team, a much tougher team. On the offensive side, the defensive tackles from Missouri whipped you up front in every possible way. I mean, when you were in that game, you didn't look like you should have been in that game because you were being dominated from the start.
I think it was 7-6. I think Tennessee had 9 negative plays on offense and 4 that gained 0. I'm not talking about incomplete passes.
Right. Yeah.
Just 4 runs that got 0. There's no formula to win when you do that on offense.
And I think and let's say your defensive linemen have played a little bit better this season at times, and they have improved. You haven't seen any improvement out of your linebackers. And I think if you had said before the season, pick the strong part of this defense, it would have been Batuli and it would have been Kirkland Jr. And you think, okay, we've got 2 solid guys. And I thought they played better against Kentucky. But then yesterday, they take some incredibly bad angles. They try to run around a block instead of taking on the blocker and beating him. And so I think your linebackers, out of your defense, that may have been the most disappointing part for this whole season to me, is just your linebacker play.
They're not a good defense against a balanced offense. Now, you could argue maybe a lot of teams aren't, but Tennessee in particular is not good against a balanced offense.
Well, and look, they beat Auburn and they beat Kentucky, and they did things that forced Stidham into turnovers. But I don't think it's a stretch to say your 2 wins came against the 2 worst quarterbacks you faced in SEC play. I mean, Stidham and Wilson are the 2 worst, which gets back to what you're saying. If you don't have 2 dimensions against them, it's a whole lot of it not easier to defend somebody. Yeah. When we come back, coming up later, does Jeremy Pruitt gamble too much? I say yes. I think there are times I can't figure out the rationale behind some of the gambles. We'll see what the guys in the panel say. They may disagree with me. But also later on, and that's later on. Next, we're going to talk about the Chris Garantano thing. Is that finally put to bed? And then also, are there new issues at quarterback we should be concerned about for 2019? Come on back.